Shabbat Shalom, and we are very close now to Shabbat. It's beginning to draw in here in the UK. Welcome to the Rabbi's blog for counting the Omer, and finally reached the point where I'm thinking next Friday, of course, is Shavuot. This is the last blog that I'll be doing on a Friday now. We're on the final countdown through the final week to arrive at Shavuot. So today, I want to really tease your brain a little bit and trying to get you to think through something. This is a quote from Rav Shaul in his letter to the Jewish community in Ephesus, and he says this in chapter 2. There's a verses which most of us are well aware of and know, but maybe haven't really understood the full importance of. So I just want to read them to you, let the words sink in. He says, "Therefore, remember that you, former Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision made in the flesh by hands, that at that time you were without Messiah, being aliens from the commonwealth or citizenship of Israel, and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now in Messiah Yeshua, you who were once afar off have been made near, brought near by the blood of Yeshua." It's an amazing few verses, actually, when you think about what he's saying here. We start off when he opens up that paragraph. The whole letter in many ways addressed to the Goyim, former Goyim in this community in Ephesus. And he makes it very clear. He describes them. Remember, you who were once, formerly Goyim, that you are no more. Terence Donaldson, in his some of his really very good books which he's written about this topic in his theme, makes it very clear that he's indeed making the point in this about that you were a Gentile. Now you're not anymore. You've come now to join the Jewish people, you're saved, you're born again, and you're into Israel in the real sense of the word. Joshua Garraway makes a similar kind of point in his book also that he's written about this from the Jewish side rather than the Christian side. And he lists here for us the kind of things that you were once, but now that you are not. So let's go through them one by one. At that time, before you knew Messiah, before you were part of Israel, while you were still a Gentile, you were without Messiah. Well, that's obvious. Clearly, you were without Messiah, you were the Gentiles. You were an alien from the commonwealth of Israel. Commonwealth is a really bad translation there. You'll know, of course, it's really talking about citizenship. It's the same Greek word that's used in a few verses later, that you're a citizen. Here, bizarrely, it's been translated in the King James as commonwealth. It doesn't mean that. It creates all kinds of strange images, certainly in the British mind, when we talk about the commonwealth. It's not a particularly useful translation. You were a stranger or a foreigner, as it were, from the citizenship of Israel, but now that is no longer true. You were a stranger from the covenants of promise. Notice that little s, the covenants. Because most people think when you're born again, it's just one covenant, the renewed covenant. That is it. And that is what you now have and nothing else. But people forget the renewed covenant is based upon the preceding covenants that have gone before them. It says you were a stranger from all these covenants, the Abrahamic, the Mosaic, right up to the renewed. You had no hope and without God in the world. That is what Gentiles are. That is the Jewish understanding of what Gentiles are. You can pick up any Jewish book when it's talking about the demarcation of the breakup of the world and its Jews and Gentiles. Those are the only two groups within the Jewish framework of the world and population of the world that people are in. You're either in one or the other. There isn't a third way. And yet he says, now you were afar off, but you've been brought near. And that being brought near, of course, is exactly conversionary terminology. In Hebrew, it's what is used when a Gentile approaches the God of Israel to become part of his people as well. And so now the opposite of these things are true for you. So let's just read the opposite. If you know the God of Israel and the Jewish Mashiach, and you've now drawn close to Israel and his people, this is what is true of you now. You are with Messiah. Amen. That is certainly true. You were an alien from citizenship of Israel. Now you're not. You're now part of what it means to be the citizenship of Israel. You were a stranger from the covenants of promise. Now you're no longer. You're in the covenants of promise. You had no hope in this world. Now you do have hope. You were without God in the world. Now you are with him. And you were afar off. Now you have been brought near, and you are near. And the way of that being brought near, the single way which the scriptures there is quite clear, by the blood of Yeshua Mashiachenu. See, for Rav Shaul, he didn't start developing a third way. That theology came many, many, many years later, first, second century, second, third century. If you read through some of the history books, the development of how this whole movement slowly became Gentilized and paganized and everything else and moved towards Christianity as we know it today. This idea, this theology of this third way, neither Jew nor Greek, but something else, Christian, was a later theological trend. It wasn't created in the first century by Rav Shaul. He certainly would not have known about it. He makes it very clear that you are being brought near and into the people of God, because there is only one people of God. This sounds controversial. I'm sure it does for many people. But this is, I'm sure, what the scriptures are saying. We need a radical restructuring of our paradigm of faith, what it means to be a believer. If you weren't born Jewish, you cross over. You become an Ivrit. You cross over into the kingdom of God. You cross over into the people of God that God has called and chosen and elected. The good news is God is still choosing today. It doesn't matter whether you're born Jewish or Gentile. At the end of the day, on that level of salvation, anyone who calls on the name of the Lord can be saved. God is still calling, still choosing his people, and it's possible to be called and God choose you and become part of his people right now. Salvation is open to all and anyone, regardless of background or ethnicity or any other tag that we want to use. And from Shaul's perspective, this is truly the good news of Yeshua, and it is still the good news of Yeshua today. Bless you, have a lovely weekend. There won't be a blog tomorrow because it's Shabbat, so I will see you again on Yom Rishon, on Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon for the blog. Next instalment as we now enter our final week running up to Shavuot. Toda Rabah, Lehitraot, and Shabbat Shalom once more.